All right. My friend once said, wait patiently, God will provide. Hold on and see. Well, I called the bank. What is my balance? To my surprise, 0. I phoned that friend, chewed him out, sent a screenshot of my account. Brother, I need just one word of comfort, and he gave not one, but 0. So I opened up my MacBook Pro, I Googled jobs, prefer remote, and these 10 fit my specifications. So I applied and heard from 0. Well, I talked to God, finally. Then came a thought, but can it be? I swear he said, refresh your browser, and when I did, still 0. Well, now I'm hot, he needs to know I trusted him, and he didn't show. So I pray again, but with some volume, surpassing peace. 0. God, where are you? Are you not here? I thought you were, so I had no fear. And my faith walked out and took you with it. Now I've got no one. I climbed in bed, too late that night, too proud to bend, too tired to fight. The tears snuck up and drenched my pillow, but apologies, 0. The morning came with quiet soul. I felt the peace of having no control. Father, forgive my damned impatience. I want to trust you. My friend's old words came back to me. He will provide. Wait patiently. Did he mean the job? Did he mean the money? Or being brought to 0? Jehovah Jireh, he did provide. He gave the belly of a whale in which to hide. There's no light in there, no sense of prospect, but no distance from my God. 0.
How do you take something that's so personal, and write a song and then make it applicable to everyone?
I honestly, I'm usually like not thinking about everyone. I think I forget who it was that I was reading about. They said the things that are most personal are the things that are most universal. And so like that song actually feels like almost like personal to an alienating degree in my imagination, because I'm sitting and I'm playing through it, and every verse is like a specific thing, like a real life thing that happened. And I remember playing it out for the first time, and honestly, because it was so personal in my imagination, I just thought this probably isn't gonna land. And I had a handful of people come up and tell me that it meant a lot to them because it like met them and what they're walking through. And that happens. Like I listen to people's music and it's really personal to them. It's obviously like a pretty specific story of something that they've walked through. there's something about it that meets me exactly where I am too. And so it's just interesting. Like it's never really my aim to try to bridge the gap between where I am and where people are. I feel like I'm usually just trying to figure out what's going on with me, and like what is happening right now, and where is God in this. And but then when you walk through it, you end up with something that I think people can experience for themselves. It kind of hits them where they are. So
Yeah, I feel like I always like want to water something down so it's more relatable to people.
Yeah.
But it's like then it becomes unrelatable because you're trying to like relate to too many people or something like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like it almost, when you try to go universal with something, it almost feels like you have to lift it up into this like ethereal place where you end up losing the substance that actually allows for people to like grab onto it. And I think some people are able to look out and actually write for larger groups and do it really well. It's just never worked that well for me, honestly. So yeah, but I do think I think you're right. You sometimes if you're trying to write with a whole bunch of other people in mind, it can inadvertently just water down what it is that you're trying to work through.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like for you, video, how is that? Like in telling stories and video and stuff, like how has that worked out?
I think sometimes you jump too quickly to what the story is. So I'm telling someone else's story. So in the documentary world, like you walk into someone else's life and you walk in with all these preconceptions of what the story is going to be. So if you're walking into like a homeless situation, you're like, oh, I know these are the story beats before you even get to sit down and like talk to the person and like. Because then you're like, oh, I'm just telling a story that I've heard before instead of this unique thing that is specific to this person. And like, it's the uniqueness, you find the nuance in it that really makes something beautiful and relatable and just different.
Yeah. Which is also, I would imagine, that's like a practice of faith. It's got to require a lot of faith for you to step in and be willing to not already have the story figured out, and to have your focuses already figured out, and to just show up and like trust that God's gonna bring to your attention what you need to focus on. Like I feel like it's got to require a lot of faith.
And sometimes it just doesn't work out, you know. Like, how many songs have you started and you're like,
dude,
it
so
just doesn't,
many.
it just doesn't work. And that happens, you know. It's part of like the fine tuning of the creative process of just like, oh, like I want this to be real, but it's just not, and being okay with just letting go of it.
Yeah. Wow.
What would you say your like creative process is for writing a song?
Man, I feel like it's changed so much over the years because it has so much to do with life circumstances. I've compared it a lot to surfing, where like if you really want to catch a wave, and songwriting for me feels a lot like riding a wave. There's so much of it that's out of your control. Like I've sat down before and I've carved out time and space, and I just feel like nothing's coming for, you know, who knows why. But like if you want to catch a wave, you got to be in the water and you got to be on a surfboard. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And so I feel like realistically, the amount of time that I have at this point, I've got 4 young kids. I pastor a church. I teach music part-time.
Drowning in the water.
Yeah, like I've got some stuff going on, and so it's crowded out some of that open space that I used to have to be able to sit and write. And for a while, it put a lot of pressure on me too. And I would imagine, you know, from your own experience with creating, when you go into a situation and you feel immense pressure to make something, it can like choke the life out of you on it. And so what I try to do now with the life phase I'm in is when I feel open and like I have energy to sit down and have a guitar, I just sit down and I grab my guitar and I start playing. Usually for me, like songs start with a chord progression of some sort that just seems right for the moment. And some almost just spontaneous lines that come out that, yeah, I don't, a lot of times the words that are coming out, they don't stick necessarily, but there's something there that I can start to form. And kind of like you said earlier, not everything turns into a song. You know, sometimes it's just sitting and playing, and it was what I needed for the moment. But sometimes it does turn into a song, which is great.
Is it like getting something that's inside, just getting it out into the world? Like, because you said, like, when you say you just, words come out, like, where do you think where does that come from?
Yeah, I don't know. I've wondered that, honestly. I feel like I've told, my wife is a therapist. I've told her, so I've been writing songs since I was a teenager, like 12, 13. And for me, songwriting began from kind of a darker place, like walking through depression and just trying to make sense of what teenagers are trying to make sense of. And still to this day, like 20 years later, I feel like I don't really know what I feel or think until I write a song about it sometimes. And so I think it's, like I've told her, it's, there's something about lyric and melody that is taking what has been down here for a while and kind of giving it an opportunity to finally come up to the surface. And of course, also, you know, you go through the process of trying to turn something that you've been thinking on and meditating on for 6 months, and now it has to be one line.
Yeah.
And it really forces you into, like, what do I think about this, and what do I feel about? Why doesn't this one word feel right to me? And then playing with every line. So I think it's probably just like some sort of collection of all the stuff that I've been living and thinking and feeling over a long period of time.
Yeah. It makes you sit with things. Like, I think a lot of times in today, like you talk about, there's so many things going on all the time.
Yeah.
We don't have time to sit and like figure out what we actually feel and actually think about.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I'm editing a video, like I have to sit with that video for like days and days and days and stare at the same, 3-minute segment of time over and over and over and over, and you get so familiar with it, and like you just, there's so much, again, that nuance, and then you can pull that out of it and just like really resonate with each kind of moment.
Yeah. How do you know when a shot is the one? Like, even for that song that we just did, we did a few takes, and like, how, when you're sitting in that for days on end, how do you know, like, when this angle is the one versus that one?
Well, there are rules that you kind of follow. Essentially, it kind of provides some sort of framework, but you just know. I'm not good enough at what I do yet to know, like, give an answer. But it's one of those things where I think your emotions strike first. Yeah. And you're like, whoa, I had a reaction to that. Yeah. I don't know why, and then you can sit with it and maybe eventually kind of uncover why you had an emotion to that. Yeah. But that's really like you kind of get goosebumps. You're like, whoa, I don't know where that came from. But that was really meaningful. That
feels really similar to how I would describe like lyric writing for myself. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, there are some rules that guide. Like I like writing in rhyme schemes. I think I can notice how alliteration like really heavily influences a lot of my lyrical choices. But at the end of the day, there's this emotional response that I might have to a certain word. Like some words just don't feel right, and I don't really know how else to describe it than that. Yeah, and so that's really interesting. Though. Yeah, like to think about that in two different mediums.
Yeah, and there's like alliteration in the way you shoot something too. Like you can have
cool.
Yeah, you can have like a shot that does the same movement over and over and over with different like people or main objects, but like that's a form of, but you just like you can team that up with a really good song or a really good like story beat or something like that to like to emphasize things, and you just like there's just something in there that you're just like, this says more than what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I think that's something that I was always really nervous about when I first started editing, was like I'd accidentally put two shots next to each other, and be like, wow, that looks so good. I would have never done that on purpose, you know? And like you get
yeah.
afraid that you're never going to replicate it, but like that's like kind of part of it. Like that never stops. You're always like accidentally stumbling on these things that are beautiful.
I think that was part of what I loved about songwriting when I was a kid, because I ended up studying music in college, and so now I have, you know, more of an understanding of music theory and how different chord progressions and sounds work together and why some sound this way. But you know, like when I was a kid and I'm just figuring it out, I like pick up a guitar and I just start making random like wait, okay, that like accidentally kind of sounds good, and then I would go to something like something that now I have a framework and I can know when it's inside the frame and when it's outside the frame. But when you're a kid and you're inexperienced, it's almost like everything is just this playground and you're stumbling your way through it.
Yeah.
You're actually working within frameworks and outside of frameworks, but you just don't know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about that with video too.
Yeah. What would you say stops you?
In what way?
Like when you either want to be creative, and you sit down and you're like, but then it stops you, or like maybe even get through the process and you're like, there's something in the way, like, you know, is it something physical? Is like time, like is like you don't have enough time, or is it like an emotional block where you're like afraid of what you're gonna release?
Yeah, I think there are probably multiple things. I think one would be environment. Because honestly, like, kids stop me. And I think early on in parenting, that really bothered me. But now I feel like I actually receive that as a gift in itself, because it kind of it helps music stay in its rightful place. Because like we were talking about before we started the cameras, I think for me, I'm like music for a long time held this really unhelpful weight of ambition and like personal glory and stuff, and I had a lot hanging on every song, and I was writing a song for a very specific purpose, and it just had too much. I think too much in it for me. And if that's what you're feeling when you're sitting down to write a song, then a kid coming in and screaming and ruining that, you're riding the wave, so to speak, and a kid knocks you off. Like, dude, that's really frustrating. But I think God has actually used the phase that I'm in, like the life phase I'm in, to temper some of that. So environment, but I actually kind of count that as a gift nowadays. I think there's probably another thing that stops me is there are some songs that I write that I just feel like are a little too raw to go into the world. And it can be hard to discern that line between what's too raw and what is okay to show and share publicly. And that can put just a little bit of a hurdle for me, because I write a little differently, I think.
Yeah.
If I know that something is never going to be shared versus if I think that something will be. So, I'm sure there are lots of other things, but I think those are the two main ones.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm curious about the too raw thing, and like obviously I'm not going to ask you to share examples of things that are too raw, but like
let me share.
But like where does that, when it comes to like the artistic, I don't know, like purpose of sharing experiences and like speaking some sort of truth into other people's lives, like do you feel any sort of like responsibility to share those things?
In a way, this comes back to writing for like not really writing with other people in mind for the most part. There's some ways in which I write for other people for sure. Like I think primarily in the Sunday morning church setting. But with my personal, like what I would call my personal music, my more personal music, I don't necessarily feel a responsibility for it to be anything in particular. I do all of a sudden have a new filter for what do I feel comfortable with my kids listening to. You know, right now I have a 7, 6, 4-year-old and an almost 1-year-old, and they listen to my music. And so there's some, now more than ever, I think I'm actually considering what do I want them to be hearing. But I think just by nature, I'm always going to lean more personal and a little more open and raw with it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe all songwriters feel that way about themselves. I have no idea. But I don't necessarily feel like I have a responsibility to be one thing or another. All right, so could I ask like a similar question with you?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's an interesting thing. I feel like my songs are telling stories. Obviously, like the song we just recorded it's a story. You are telling stories, but it's like I'm sitting down telling my own story. And so I feel like I have a lot of it's probably easier for me to feel less responsibility over my own story because I'm kind of the one taking my own risk with what I share and what I don't share. When you're telling other people's stories, how does your sense of responsibility in like handling another person's story show up in what you're doing?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is like being authentic to their story.
Yeah.
Like you can across all mediums. I mean, you can do anything in the editing bay. Like I could edit this to make you say anything I want, you know, and it would just be unauthentic and like it would
that's crazy
strip everything off, you know, and like especially now in the time of AI, you can make anyone do anything.
Yeah.
And I think like to love someone effectively is to love their story and to the in its totality and its truth and its so like for me like that's the responsibility first to the person when I like they give me their story and oftentimes like I'll ask uncomfortable questions. You know, like you're on the verge of tears when you mentioned this one moment. I'm going to ask you again about this in a different way to try to pull more out of you. And like you can do that in a really malicious way.
Yeah.
But so many times after interviews, I've had people say, like, wow, you know, I don't know why I teared up at that moment, but unpacking it, it gave me so much more peace now that we're done with this interview and that it's like for the video and on camera. And that's like a special moment to be able to like be someone's therapist in some sense of just like, oh, I've never had someone actually ask me an intentional question about that because they're nervous about it.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it's just like sending them a copy. Be like, hey, like, is this accurate to what the story is? Because at some point you can't really know the perfect truth of the story because you didn't live it, and so you're just trying to piece it together. And again, most times if you do a really good job, people are just like they love to tell their story. You know, like they love to have their story told because it's part of overcoming something difficult. You know, it's part of their character, part of what made them who they are. And if you do it in a real way, like they love that, and they feel like empowered and
something really cool about what you do is I think it's kind of like when you and a friend you meet someone new, hearing your friend introduce you and like what sticks out to them about who you are can be really interesting and refreshing and almost like help you get to know yourself a little more deeply. And I feel like what you do can also bless people in the same way. Like have a, like what is my story through your eyes, and like what's your perception of what God is doing through my life. And I think for you to be able to sit down and do that with people is it's a really special thing. It can be hard to see what in the world is going on in my own life, and like what is God doing right now. So
and it's just like goes back to that like patience of, I don't know the story. Like we do that with people all the time. When you meet someone, you make a quick first impression, and you're like, oh, I know everything about this person, you know? And it's like the same thing with the videos. Like, oh, I actually need to have these questions, and then when I like am not sure about something, don't assume, and like actually ask a question. Last question for you on you mentioned like that, and especially the one we just recorded was a story. What have you learned about storytelling, and like what are some like things that, some tools you use to really tell an effective story?
I think I'm still learning. Storytelling was not what I was interested in when I first started songwriting. In some ways, I've more, I think, just come back to the roots of the music that I grew up on. My dad always had outlaw country music playing, so I spent a lot of time with Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard. And those guys tell stories really well. And I honestly, I kind of stumbled into this style of songwriting at a time when, the surfing analogy, like I've only got 15 minutes to be out in the water. And because I've got this kid napping and I know I don't have much time here. And when you do that, it forces you into the things that are more instinctual for you, and because you just don't have that much time to like think deeply about what you're doing. You just kind of sit down and see what comes out. And it was interesting to see that was the kind of stuff that was coming out. It almost felt like I was being transported back to so I feel like I'm still in a place where most of what I write from a storytelling perspective is more instinctual than it is well thought out. I think I have a lot of learning to do in how to tell a good story. But I think the things that I've become cognizant of when I'm writing is like details, real life, tangible details, I think are really helpful. The song that we just did, like I could have said, I opened up my computer and searched something, but I went with, I opened up my MacBook Pro and I Googled jobs, prefer remote. And it's because that's for one what it actually was. But I think it's kind of, similar to that concept that we were talking about, like the more watered down it gets, you feel like you're going more universal. But when you say computer, there's so many images that could come to your mind, which isn't a bad thing. But when I say I opened up my MacBook Pro, like you can picture exactly what's happening. I Googled jobs, prefer remote, and it's like we've all done some version of that before. And so I think I've learned not to shy away from the really tangible details. I've also found that those tangible details have a tendency of being disarming. And again, like the first time I played this kind of stuff out in public, people started laughing, and I didn't perceive these songs to be humorous at all. I just thought this is the story of something that happened. I played that song, and people started laughing like in the first verse. And now when I play it out, I know to expect it, and I probably lean into it a little bit. But that was a discovery for me. Is like when you go really granular with these details, I think it can feel disarming and humorous in the same way like a comedian starts giving their bit. And the more specific they get with like, oh shoot, I've done that too, the funnier it becomes. And so I just yeah, kind of, I think I lean into that a little more now than I used to. I don't try to go ethereal with it or zoom out too much.
Yeah, that's interesting. That really puts a different perspective. So like when I film a thing, like I have to go capture a lot of B-roll of like
for sure.
people doing things, and you get like detailed shots, and like I've always known the detail shots were there to kind of help support the story in a way, but I don't know, the way you phrase it about like it making it more real. There's something there that I need to unpack a little bit more about how I'm shooting and filming B-roll is again to make it like more relatable or just like and then to disarm people is like it like maybe is like less unknown so people can be more comfortable in the moment or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. So that one is still a mystery for me, and I mean I haven't really sat and thought my way through it that much, but because like I said, I was surprised at people's reaction to that kind of songwriting.
Are you okay with that? Like that people laugh?
I'm fine with it. Like joking around and like having fun is actually a big part of my life, my life, which kind of feels weird to say, but I think my music has been really serious for a long time, and in that way like hasn't actually been reflective of the full scope of who I am and my personality. And so there was actually something kind of refreshing about being out and playing songs that people are laughing at, but they're not laughing at it because it's like supposed to be a joke song. They're like there's something about it that they're getting. That it hasn't bothered me at all. And I've actually found that like when I think the humor does feel disarming, so that when you get towards the end of a song and there is something that hits a little deeper, it doesn't feel intrusive, doesn't feel invasive. It feels like I've kind of opened myself up to whatever's going on in this story. So I actually kind of enjoy it now that I know it's coming. And I don't feel surprised.
First time must have been like
but I would be curious, like I'd be curious to think on that on the video front too. I've never thought about that concept being applied into other art forms, but
well, I can like there's one of my favorite quotes is like, if you laugh and cry in the same day, it's like a good day or a full day or something like that. And like, so I try to take that into, I've yet to really succeed. I think in like bringing that into a video is like, if you can have a moment where they laugh and a moment where they cry, like to reach that full like emotional range is like, and do it like authentically and like with like, that's really, can be like really, because then someone's like experienced so much in like a 5-minute video, or if you're shooting something longer than like that, but it's can be so hard to hit those tones right. And I think you see this all the times in like movies where they have an emotional beat and then they make a joke right after, and it just like sucks out the any meaning it has to it. And but to do it like well, like you do in that song. And I remember I heard the first time I heard it, like laughed too, because it's just like you expect one thing and then something else happens. And it's relatable, and then to hit at the end where you're like coming back to like, oh, the Lord does love me still, like that is like deep in meaning. And to do it to make that transition from this is funny and relatable to, oh, this hits a real piece of truth that I actually really need to know. It's not easy to do, but that is so like that sticks with people,
I feel like I've heard I forget what songwriter I heard talking about it, but they called it the ha ha songs, where you're like, you're laughing your way through it, but then there comes this moment where like I'm actually thinking about whatever is going on here. And there's a guy named Andy Gullahorn who is I think he's one of the best at that kind of songwriting, and so he's been an influence to me in a subconscious way, because I think a lot of times when I feel most distant from God, like I don't want to listen. Like I love that people write worship music, I really do, and I love the like God is my life kind of songs. Like I love that. I don't want to hear that, when I feel numb and I feel distant from God, the people that I listen to the most when I feel like I just need to be drawn back are people like Andy Gullahorn. The people who are just like, they're writing stories that I can like kind of laugh and kind of cry with. Something about that God uses to draw me back in. I would imagine it's the same with video.
Oh yeah, I mean, you get a good movie that just hits that. It's, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's all I have. I appreciate you chatting and talking and playing, and honestly, this was great.
Thanks for what you do. Yeah, thanks for taking it on, and just even giving me a chance to play a song and talk about it. I love songwriting. I love video. So being able to nerd out on both is pretty sweet. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.